Susie Walker here from Psychologies magazine, and I am here this morning with the wonderful therapist Ali Knowles. Hello, Ali. Lovely to see your smiling face. Ali is an author, best-selling author. She is a therapist, and she is founder of the Ollie School for Superheroes, which helps children but also adults to navigate life on many different levels. Ali works in schools with a lot of teachers, as well as parents, as well as just individuals and children. So, Ali, I know that we're going to be talking about a subject that's very dear to my heart right now, which is the subject of over-giving and how we give too much. And I know that I literally the weekend I just crashed and burnt, and like we get kind of burnout. So tell me a little bit about this whole concept of giving too much.
As a therapist, I see it in my therapy room all the time where people are absolutely exhausted. I can see they're on their last legs, and no matter what you say, they're like, no, I have to keep going because nobody else will or nobody else can. And I'm thinking, keep going till when? Because there's always something, isn't there? So at the moment, it's COVID. So you're going to keep going till when? Because COVID's not going away tomorrow or next week. How long can you keep going if that's your mindset? And it's really apparent they can't. And they're crashing and burning. And it's mums, it's dads, it's carers. And I'm not just talking adults, young carers. That's really frightening. Therapists, because when we're not being therapists, we have families too. And I guess this came to a head with me, with everything going on in my world outside the therapy room. And I had to stop and say, Ali, why are you putting yourself through this? And it was a painful, honest conversation to have, but one that will hopefully stop me burning out. So.
I mean, this idea of burnout for many of us is really, I think, I don't know about you, but I think we were kind of trying to get over the finishing line. Once we get through this, once we get through COVID, then we can relax. It was that kind of, I'll be happy when I do that. And then all of a sudden, it was a couple of weeks ago, or a week ago, is it only a week ago, that we realized, or I realized, I'm like, oh my God, this is going to go on. We've got through 6 months of this. This is going to go on for another 6 months. And I got sick and I ended up sort of sleeping for 48 hours and just feeling absolutely dreadful. So I think that there is, in this context of COVID, I think there's been for all of those people who've been kind of over responding, and for all those people who are nurses, who are on the front line of this, who have like, oh, I'll just get through this. Once this lockdown's done, we're coming through it, we're coming out, and now it seems like we're going back in. So it's a really big issue for many of us. So I suppose what I want to ask you is, where do we start to pull ourselves back a little bit from the brink of burnout and go, okay, right, what can I control? And as you say, this giving, this idea of, I can help and save or lead or whatever. How can we work out what we can do and what we can't do, and start to look after ourselves?
I think it's twofold. I think if your job role involves that you give and give and give, then that's a slightly different subject, isn't it? Because that's what you're paid to do, so you have to keep doing it. But even then, there's giving and going over the top. I think the thing that I'm really seeing is when it's not your job role, it's something that it's a job role you've created for yourself, maybe within your family unit or friends. Yeah. And I think all I can do at this point is relate it back to me. And you need to have a really honest conversation with yourself. It's not going to end next week. It's not going to end next month. And even if it did, you're probably the kind of person that next time something crops up within your family or your friendship group or wherever this is for you, you're going to dive back in there and be the white knight again, because that's what you do. It's what I do. And for me, it was realizing that I was absolutely exhausted trying to juggle everything, thinking, okay, when I've got this done, it'll be all right. I can relax, exactly as you said. And when this bit's done, and I'm just counting off the days, so when these things fall into place, I can take time for me and relax. It'll be all right. But it doesn't happen. And then you've got to sort of be really honest and say, is there no one else that can step in here and help? Well, there usually is, But people won't if you're quite forceful or you're the one that always does it. They'll just leave you to it, especially if you do the swan impression of, no, I've got this, which again, that personality type will do. So nobody will realize that they're actually struggling. And then it's, why am I doing this? Why does it need to be me? And yes, it's because you're a kind, loving, giving person. But I think there's a lot of honesty to be had in there. And I don't think it's just me, where you have to say, well, actually, I kind of like being the white knight. I like being the one that people turn to, and I like being the one that can fix things for people because I have strengths they don't have. I mean, I'm a therapist. I'm stronger. I don't take anything from anyone. So, I can get things done where they can't. Rubbish. It's all things you tell yourself and the story you tell yourself. But the biggest thing is that while you're continually doing that, the people that you're doing that for, you're doing more harm than good. Initially, by all means, help them. But if you keep doing it, you become their crutch and they will turn to you every time, which might make you feel great because you can sort it. But you're not helping them because they'll never learn to cope without you. And I think you need to have some serious words with yourself about what's that about? Why do you want them not to be able to cope without you? Because you'll tell yourself you do, but do you? What's going on there? So I think it's honest conversation time.
Sure. And I think we need a lot of compassion as well for ourselves. I think so. There's a piece I think here around a lot of people who come into the caring professions, or when we are overgiving, it comes from often a wound when we were wounded as children. So that was a coping mechanism that we learned. It's like, if we, some people learn to be the joker, some people learn to be the the athlete or the A-star student, and some of us learn to be the helper. And it's just a coping mechanism. That's what I feel for myself. It was a coping mechanism that I could be that person. And what I learned is that I can rescue myself. I've got a really strong, I talk about the inner coach at Psychologies, and I've got a really strong inner coach. And as you say, so people do come to you, and almost with Psychologies, it's like, oh, Psychologies is this fantastic thing. People come to Psychologies and get what they need, and it's brilliant. But at the same time, what we want is for people to develop their own inner coach, which is exactly what you were saying. How to do that, which is what you're doing as a therapist, isn't it? It's as a therapist, you're helping people to develop those skills to become wise within themselves. So
completely, yeah. And I think that's what's been really, really interesting, because yes, and everything about the model specifically that we work with is empowering people not to need us as therapists. And yet I found it really interesting, and it's been a real insight to me that I can do that in my therapy room, and I'll empower people not to need me because that's my job. And yet in my personal life, I'm the complete opposite. I don't empower them. I charge in like a white knight. And then do I give myself time? Usually only when I'm burnt out or I'm so far gone. And then an interesting thing happens. And again, I'm seeing it more and more in my therapy room, where people are giving and giving and giving. And maybe the person or the people that they're giving to are in such a bad place and it's not working well enough, you haven't fixed them, that they snap back at you, or you don't even get a thank you. And then resentment kicks in as well. And that sort of spirals you down as well. And I think it's so important to realize and recognize that, are you the only one that can do this? Are you actually helping by just charging in and solving everybody's problems? Is that about you, or is it about them? And it is a very honest conversation to have.
Well, I love the model of the drama triangle, which you know of. So at the top of the drama is the rescuer, then there's the victim, and then there's the persecutor. So, and we end up being, so we rescue, we go in, and then the victim goes, oh, I can't do it, and then they turn on you and go, oh, it's your fault that I can't do this, and then you become the victim, and we kind of go round and round and round the drama triangle. And it's being able to break that pattern, isn't it? So how do we break? So as you say, we've got all of the tools as therapists and as Psychologies magazine, all of these things, but in our own lives, how do we unhook from? So we see someone, the problem is that we see someone who needs help, and I think, oh my God, I've got all of these tools, have this book, oh, what about that, what about this, why go see them? And because I genuinely want to help, but at the same time, that takes my energy and my time, and if people really want to change, it's, as we know, it's a big old journey, isn't it? And you've got a lot of work. So how do we, in the first instance, stop, you know, running in and trying to help? But that feels so counterintuitive for me, and I think for many people. How do we do it?
It's as I say, it's been an interesting journey for me, because in the therapy room I do it all day long and I have very clear boundaries. You know, my job's to get you on your feet, get you out there on your own. I'm not going to fix you. And yet we can't do it personally, and it's because the emotion's in there. So the first thing to do is to actually recognize that this is emotive, and that you need to just go, hang on a minute.
Yeah.
If this was a client, and this is really what I do, and this is what I've had to do to stop myself burning out with everything going on, is if this was a client, what would I do? And the interesting thing is I'd behave so differently. I wouldn't go charging in. I wouldn't be fixing it. I'd be throwing it back. And again, it's madness listening to myself say it now, because I've had a word with myself the last few weeks. If you asked me a question, said this doesn't work, I wouldn't say, oh, try this or let me do it. I'd say, what exactly doesn't work, or how exactly is it not working? So that you have to go back in and find the answers yourself. And the moment that I realized I was doing it, and that I was too emotive, and that I was taking the world on, and that it was probably more about me than them, and then I was getting into the drama triangle, it was realizing that if I really want to help someone, don't fix them. If you really want to help someone, empower them, build them. So whatever's going on with anyone that you're supporting right now, stand back, take a look at it, recognize that, yes, you could probably dive in there because you're stronger and you've got all these strengths and connections. But what's going to happen next time? And it's recognizing the truth behind why you want to help. Because if you truly, truly want to help, diving in and fixing is never, ever going to help.
Yeah.
And unless you're a heart surgeon or something, that's probably the one. But otherwise, you're not helping, because they'll always be dependent on you, and they'll always come back, which is going to exhaust you, because one or two people you might manage, but loads of them you won't, and ultimately you'll burn. But ultimately, you're not helping them, because they're not learning to stand up. They're not learning to think things through and to recognize what's happening to themselves and take control. What can I control? What can't I? Okay, I can do this. I really can't do this. I'm not good on the phone with people. Can you do that bit for me? Yeah, I'll do that bit. And then step out. So it's just being really honest and recognizing that actually you're not necessarily helping in the long run. By all means, step in here and there where you have got key strengths or abilities that maybe that individual doesn't have. But if you're doing more than that, then I really would ask you to have an honest conversation. What is that about? Why are you doing it? Because it's about you, not them.
Yeah.
Because if you weren't there, they'd find someone else. So why is it going to be you?
I think there's a piece is again here around, you know, as you say, what's the payoff for you? You know, and you say, well, you know, I'm just helping. I'm a good because it makes you feel like a good person. It makes you feel like who you are. So as you say, it's for you, not them. So as you say, it's an uncomfortable conversation to have, but I think it's very necessary if we're going to avoid burnout. But can I just talk to you a little bit about children? Because I think I've just had this quite a dramatic situation with my son recently where I don't know, I won't go into details, teenagers behavior, but but it was quite scary. It could have ended really badly. And I mean, I literally rang my friend and I said, do I go in here? Do I go and try and fix this? Because it is really scary. And she says, no, hold back, let him see if he can sort it out himself. And I was like, okay. I mean, and I was literally 20 minutes away, but then he managed to sort it out himself in quite an extreme situation. So that for me was really, really difficult to do. And I think as parents, because you love them so much, you really want to help them and you want to fix it. You want to kind of, and my Danish friend, she says, I will never be a curling mum. I said, what does that mean? And she says, a curling mum is someone who takes, like, curling is
protects them all the way. I love that.
And I think that's so true. I think, so how how do we make that decision as parents? What do we, because I know you coach and work with children and parents.
Yeah, most of the time, we, as you know, we have children brought to us and they've got all sorts going on, some low level, some quite big stuff, yeah? And again, we could charge in and fix it. But if we do that, then the child doesn't learn. If mum charges in and fixes it, then the child doesn't learn. There are times where you have to charge in because, you know, there's no messing, just get in there. But what we do is we encourage mum and dad just to, and it is damn hard, and it's not just parenting, you know, it's siblings, it's stuff like that, to say, hang on a minute, just hang on a minute. By all means, I'm not going to ask you to stand there and do nothing. It's not in you, I know. What I want you to do is think about a safety net and just create a safety net. So, you know, the guys on the trapeze, okay, you be the safety net. Now, hopefully they won't need it, but you can sit back and let them practice swinging. And if they fall, you're there. But you're not going to hang on to the harness while they're up there, because while you're doing that, the moment you let go, they will fall. How often can you be there? You can't. So all you can do is think about a safety net. And it will keep you sane, because then if you're one of these people that has to dive in and fix and you can't leave them to it because it's awful and you could sort it quickly, please hear me. You're not helping them. They'll end up in my therapy room because they'll need you to do that forever and ever. And what when you're not there? What when you really can't?
Yeah.
They'll have no tools, because by protecting them, smothering them, you've not given them the tools, the resilience. And there's one thing we need kids to learn, all of us to learn, it's resilience. We'll get through this. If somebody said 5 months ago we would cope with there being no toilet rolls in blimmin' Tesco's and we'd have to wear masks and we couldn't go around our friends or watch a football match, we'd have all freaked. Everybody's still here. Everybody's doing it. Everybody's finding their way. So I think don't fix, support. If you really, really care, and it's bloody hard when it's close, I know it is, trust me.
Yeah.
But every time I've dived in to help my family members, I felt good, I sorted it, and they were happy. And then I realised one day that this was repeating.
Yeah.
And I realised my first thought was this was repeating because they've learned nothing. And I thought the reason they've learned nothing is because I haven't given them room to. But I can't do nothing. So then I learned, put a net in. So at the moment, there's all sorts going on in my world, but I'm not there holding the harness. But there's a net. And they don't even know there's a net, but there is a net, because that makes me sleep at night, and then I'm still being me, and I'm still able to give. But I'm not burning myself out, and I'm allowing them to grow. Yeah. It is damn hard, but it's so important.
And allowing ourselves to grow. I mean, that's
it's a huge one. Yeah.
I mean, it's. I think this piece around our own vulnerability, you know, is what we are. Living is a way for me to avoid my own vulnerability. To go, actually, I need help, and I'm a little bit off kilter. You know, again, it was my coping mechanism as a child, and I think for many of us, this kind of army of givers, and as wonderful as we are, and you know, let's be so compassionate. You know, be compassionate with ourselves and say, you know, it's lovely, it's wonderful, but now we have to kind of think about ourselves a little bit.
Turn it on you completely. If you are one of those army of givers, and thank God they're out there, then please hear me. Question why you're doing it. How would you feel if they didn't need you?
Yeah.
Right now, if I said to you, sorry, this is a little bit painful. What if your son just said, Mum, actually, I got this, back off.
Yeah.
Part of you'd be proud as, but a part of you'd be like, oh, but that's my role. You know. Put that safety net in, stand back, and allow people to find their own way. By all means, if they're dive in, but dive out again. It's like all coaching. If somebody's struggling, step in, correct them, step back. Don't do it for them, because if you do, you'll be doing it forever. And if you're talking about how do I stop myself doing this? Well, if the reason you're doing it is because you are a carer and you really, really do care, then I put it to you that if you really do care, let them grow. And to let them grow, you need to stand back and just have that net there, but stand back.
Yeah, and in the meantime, do your own personal development in the background as well, so we can stop, you know, this kind of it's unhealthy behavior, isn't it? I mean, at the end of the day, so it's good. It's like owning our own part in that.
It is, and again, and I think that's quite an honest conversation, because if you're willing to run yourself into the ground for somebody else, you can call it all sorts of things. You can call it mother love. You can call whatever you want. But if you're willing to run yourself into the ground and make yourself poorly for someone else, the first question I'd ask you as a therapist is, when did you cease to matter?
Yeah.
And that's really important, because, you know, whether you're holding that harness or you're holding the net, you so matter.
Yeah.
But we're put here to help people grow and be, not to carry them.
Yeah.
And whether you're a mum, you know, siblings, partner, if you really, really want someone to grow, and it's bloody hard, but you have to recognize what you're doing and why you're doing it, and step in when you need to, stand back, have that net there, because you can't not, right? Even if you don't tell anyone, but it makes you sleep at night. But
no,
it's about,
great advice.
you're important too. And if you're willing to kill yourself,
yes,
what message are you giving?
I think those are really wise words for these times. Ali, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom today. All the details of how to be in touch with the Ollie School and Ali's army of therapists and people who can help you find solutions to become more resilient, become stronger, to become more self-aware, so we can start having these honest conversations about how we're behaving, because it is a tweak, and we're all, whether you're a therapist, whether you're an editor of a magazine, or whatever it is, we've all got this stuff going on, and it's all a kind of an invitation to keep on growing and then keep on working, so we can be a healthier team, a healthier family, a healthier society. But my belief is, unless we go within and we start unpicking and being able to take responsibility for the part that we play, then we're not going to grow. We're not going to do that.
There's one thing that hopefully will put this in perspective for everybody that's listening. You know, when you get on an aeroplane and they do all the exits, all that malarkey, and the oxygen mask bit, and they tell you to put yours on before you put anyone else's on. Why do you think they do that?
Yeah, that's right. Otherwise you wouldn't survive. Yeah. Ali, thank you so much today. Lots of love, and I will speak to you again very soon.
You take care.
All right, I will. You too. Bye-bye.